Hello everybody, October is finally upon us. It's the time of year when the most video games come out, and a lot of the time they're spooky, evil, or otherwise accursed in honor of Halloween. But this month in particular, there really are a hell of a lot of them, somewhat literally. You'll see what I mean in a second. Now here are October 2024's biggest game releases from hell. Now before we get started, just our usual friendly reminder that we do our very best to make these videos as accurate and comprehensive as possible, but games do slip through the cracks here and there, and release dates are subject to change after the fact being us making these videos, so apologies in advance if we screwed anything up. Let's get into it. On October 1st, the questionably titled Master Detective Archives Rain Code Plus lets you play as an amnesiac sleuth in training, solving the hell out of some mysteries with the help of your old pal, the God of Death. Doesn't really sound like a Master Detective to me, but this is the enhanced multi-platform re-release of a 2023 Switch game, so maybe he's learned or remembered a few tricks of the trade since then. That's on PS5, Xbox Series, and PC. On the 3rd, if you thought your workplace culture was bad, Hell of an Office will have you precision platforming your way through the cursed cubicles of a particular Stygian place of business and probably getting chewed out by a stapler-headed boss for not doing your TPS reports properly. That's leaving early access on PC. If you'd prefer a more conventional hell, well, stay a while and listen. On October 8th, Diablo 4's big ol' Vessel of Hatred expansion is here to get you back in the grind, running through the jungles of Nahantu and learning the ropes of the all-new Spiritborn class. That's on everything that Diablo 4 is already on. If you'd prefer some hellish hills to hellish hells, well, keep it down because Silent Hill 2 Remake is here to have you running from pyramid-headed monsters and pressing some triangle-faced buttons on PS5 and PC. There's no triangle button on PC, but there's an A and a V and various pointy little caret keys, so just work with me here, come on. If you prefer Mr. Satan to regular Satans and bright colors yelling and explosions to fog and eerie silence, Dragon Ball's Sparking Zero is just what the doctor ordered, unless you're talking about Dr. Gero, in which case the doctor's orders are for androids to kill Goku. If you haven't been keeping track, this is basically the 4th entry in the Budokai Tenkaichi series. The last one came out 17 years ago, and in that time we got a literal dozen universes worth of new Dragon Ball characters to pit against each other, so as a result, this game has one of the biggest launch rosters in fighting game history, with 164 different playable characters out the gate. That is almost double that of Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, and I have a sneaking suspicion that Sparking Zero will get more as DLC. I'm guessing it's not a coincidence this drops the same day as the new anime series Dragon Ball Daima premieres. In any case, Sparking Zero is coming to New Gen and PC on October 11th, or October 8th if you pay for the fancy version, or if your estranged son from the future comes back in time to bring you a copy. Going back to the hellish motif of the month, that same day sees the release of Metaphor ReFantazio, which is the new RPG from the folks behind the Persona series and the more recent Shin Megami Tensei games. Even better, it's got mechanical designs courtesy of Ikuto Yamashita, who worked on Evangelion, and a bunch of its monsters are based on the work of Hieronymus Bosch, whose work was basically the 15th century equivalent of Evangelion. You know, Judeo-Christian apocalyptic visions of f***ed up angels and demons fighting each other. Stuff like that. Narratively, Metaphor ReFantazio seems to be leaning more towards conventional fantasy than some of Atlus's other series, but it sure as hell doesn't look conventional. That's on PS4, PS5, Xbox Series, and PC. If being stuck at a social gathering with Dora the Explorer, Paw Patrol, and Steve's dog Blue is your idea of a fate worse than death, well, a fresh hell awaits you in Nick Jr. Party Adventure. Hey, fun fact, one of the reasons I let my hair grow out is that my wife kept saying I look like the dude from Paw Patrol. And really? Fair. That's on everything. If you've gotten your fill of diving into hell with one of the year's biggest, most bug-filled games and want to spread a different, more officially licensed flavor of galactic democracy, October 11th is also when Starship Troopers Extermination leaves early access on PC and deploys on PS5 and Xbox Series. In addition to chaotic 16-player co-op survival missions against hordes of bugs, single-player missions are also on the way, which will involve plenty of Casper Van Dien shouting at you as General Johnny Rico. And actually, the multiplayer might too, because he told me at Gamescom that he's been playing during early access and yelling at kids over his mic.
Kill some bugs! You know what to do!
Have you ever said to yourself,
every time I look into a monitor, my circuits sizzle. When are we gonna start busting Deceptichops?
Well, you should seek professional help, but also, on October 11th, there's Transformers Galactic Trials, which promises equal parts arcade racing and robot battling, and you could probably bust some Deceptichops in there somewhere. That's on everything. We were going so strong with this Halloween theme, but the best connection I could make to Transformers was helicopters.
Helicopter, helicopter!
And I don't think they have any in Galactic Trials. What a drag. Anyway, if you'd rather float like a butterfly than roll out like a bumblebee, last but not least on the 11th is Undisputed, which is indisputably the biggest boxing game to come out this month, probably this year, but it's not like we get a ton of those these days anyway. It's been on Steam Early Access since the beginning of last year, and it's got mostly positive reviews. If you wish EA's Fight Night series hadn't gone into early retirement in 2011, this might be worth going a few rounds with. That's on new gen and PC. Hey, I just met you and this is crazy, but if you've ever wished that Carly Rae Jepsen's breakout hit Call Me Maybe could be stuck on your head instead of just in your head, great news, because it's one of the 25 songs included with Just Dance VR, which hits the Meta Quest on October 15th. As much of a bop that song is, I think I'll listen to it the old-fashioned way, which is at weddings, when the DJ is trying to get people out on the floor but isn't quite ready to resort to Uptown Funk quite yet. If you want to experience a whole new world of shining, shimmering splendor, well, Amazon's MMO New World planted its flag on PC back in 2021, but October 15th, New World Aeternum is hitting PC and new-gen consoles. This will include everything from the base game, but also a ton of new content, and will offer an enhanced experience that tailors the gameplay to console newcomers, while also bringing some improvements to the PC version as well. On the 17th, Blazing Strike is a retro-styled 2D fighter that draws inspiration from classic SNK and Capcom arcade games, but incorporates some modern sensibilities as well, such as not making you go ask your mom for a bunch of quarters. That's on the PlayStation's PC and Switch. Still on the 17th, if you want a tense, nerve-wracking game where you try to avoid making any noise, A Quiet Place: The Road Ahead is exactly that. It's a first-person single-player narrative survival horror based on the hit movie franchise, and it's on new gen and PC. If you want a tense, nerve-wracking game where you will inevitably make a lot of noise, Super Mario Party Jamboree is exactly that. It's a third-person multiplayer party game that will probably result in countless arguments between friends and family members that is exclusively on Switch, at least until mom says it's explicitly off-limits because somebody always winds up crying. Why can't you just be nice to your sister already? On the 18th, Unknown 9 Awakening is a third-person action-adventure game involving paranormal abilities that lets you possess enemies and make them think you're invisible and cool stuff like that. If you'd like to know more about what the heck is going on in this universe, there is plenty of supplemental media, including a comic series, a scripted podcast, and a whole trilogy of novels. That's on the PlayStations, Xboxes, and PC. The game, I mean. Some of the other stuff is probably on there too, but I'm unsure if it's even possible, let alone a good idea, to read several long books on your TV. Don't do that. Another game out that day that has several decades of supplemental media is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutants Unleashed, which is the first game based on their latest permutation from Mutant Mayhem. That's on everything. Does the idea of a co-op action game with hack-and-slash combat, roguelite-inspired missions, and town-building progression make you light up with excitement? Well, if so, check out Lynked: Banner of the Spark when it hits early access on the 22nd. If you prefer slashers to hack and slash, another game that might be more your speed is Forest Hills: The Last Year, which also hits PC that day as well. That is a 5v1 asymmetrical horror game that looks like it has a dash of Dead by Daylight and a pinch of Silent Hill. That has no connection to the indie horror film The Forest Hills, which is notably Shelley Duvall's final performance, but that hits streaming on the 4th. That's a movie, not a game. We don't talk about movies here usually, just throwing that in there because it has the same name as the game. Anyway, on the 24th, Romancing Saga 2 Revenge of the Seven is a full-on 3D overhaul of the groundbreaking 1993 Super Famicom JRPG. The original has stayed in circulation thanks to its success on Japanese mobile phones and subsequent ports to various platforms, but it seems like this latest overhaul could attract a whole new generation of fans who maybe prefer polygons to pixels. That's on the PlayStation, Switch, and PC. Hey, did you know that in France the Smurfs are called Les Schtroumpfs, and in Germany they're called Die Schlumpf, and in Italy they're just called Poofy? Well, if you already knew that, did you know that the Smurfs Dreams is a 3D platformer about those diminutive cerulean communists, and it's coming to everything on the 24th as well? Oh, well, if you knew that too, I guess we should just move on then, huh? On the 25th, Call of Duty Black Ops 6 hits everything but Switch. The title for this one keeps screwing me up because for over a year we've been hearing leaks and rumors that suggest that it might be called Black Ops Gulf War. It's set during the Gulf War, so that makes sense, but it also seems like a continuation of the naming convention that started with Black Ops Cold War, which I guess is now officially considered Black Ops 5? You know what I think? I think Activision got so embarrassed that everyone made fun of them for using the wrong Roman numeral for Black Ops 4 that they called the 5th game Cold War to distract everyone, and now for Black Ops 6 they switched to Arabic numerals, which they probably should have just done starting with 4 because Roman numerals are a pain in the ass after a certain point anyway. Speaking of which, East 10 looks like an algebra problem, but it's actually the latest installment in the long-running JRPG series. Anyway, East 10 is officially subtitled Nordics, and as the name would suggest, it's got some Viking themes, which include some naval battles, and on the gameplay front, it's shaking things up with a more focused combat system where you only control 2 combatants rather than a whole party. Despite having an X in the title, that is on everything but Xbox. Something else with an X in the title coming out that day is Sonic X Shadow Generations, which is simultaneously a remaster of Sonic's 2011 solo outing and also an all-new adventure starring the darker and edgier but equally pointy version of the Blue Blur. There are a lot of different ways you can pronounce the X in the middle of a title like this, and I'm told that in this case it is Sonic X Shadow, which is maybe not ideal because it kind of sounds like you're saying Sonic's X Shadow, like they used to date, which they probably have in some fanfiction somewhere. The alternative would have been to make the X silent, like in the last Godzilla Kong movie, or in Hunter x Hunter, or it could have been cross like Street Fighter Cross Tekken, or bi as in 2x4 or 4x4. In any case, Sonic X Generations is coming to everything, including the Xbox Series, which is not Xbox Series X with a silent X, but a blanket term for Xbox Series X and S because repeatedly saying both of those letters is just excessive. On the 29th, there's the fourth mainline Life is Strange game, Double Exposure, and as strange as life might be, I applaud the developers for spelling the game title with normal words and not getting crazy and calling it like Double X Posure. This sees the return of the original Life is Strange protagonist Max Caulfield, who once again is solving problems with supernatural abilities, but this time around she's dealing with parallel, overlapping timelines, not unlike the photographic technique from which the game is taking its name. That is on new gen and PC. Hey, if you thought we were out of hellish games this month, or you thought there was no more room in your Steam library for another game about shooting zombies, you are sorely mistaken on both counts. Hitting early access on Halloween proper is No More Room in Hell 2, the long-awaited follow-up to the massively popular 2011 co-op zombie survival FPS source mod, which is now running in Unreal 5 and has been developed by the original team and Torn Banner Studios, the developers of the Chivalry series. If the idea of there being no more room in hell sounds more like a logistical and administrative nightmare rather than a badass quote from a George Romero movie, you may be better suited for Underworld Overseer. This VR dungeon keeper game will have you building and running a subterranean lair, bossing around imps and demons to do your bidding and keeping your cool when all hell breaks loose. That's on MetaQuest and PC VR on Halloween, the one day of the year where people put even dumber looking stuff on their heads than VR headsets. And finally, if your idea of hell is waiting a decade for the next Dragon Age game, you're probably in heaven this month because the Veilguard, formerly Dreadwolf, is finally coming to new gen and PC. From the sound of things, this project went through several circles of development hell. Allegedly, the earliest version was scrapped for not having a live service component, and a new one was in the works that would have remedied that, but then that went back to the drawing board after the massively multiplayer Anthem the bed and the singularly single-player Jedi Fallen Order exceeded expectations, so BioWare went back to square one again to make a single-player Dragon Age game, which you'd think would have been a fairly clear-cut course of action given that Dragon Age Inquisition was 2014's overall Game of the Year according to multiple outlets, award shows, and gamers alike.
Do the same thing as last time. Everyone's happy.
That's not to say that a Dragon Age live service multiplayer game couldn't work, but as far as I'm concerned, hell is other people, and one of the primary selling points of a good RPG is making friends with lovingly realized fictional characters who may or may not be in the mood for love, not just internet randos with sexually suggestive usernames. Anyway, that's it. We did it. This is probably the busiest month of the year for game releases, though next month is also a shit show. So again, apologies if we got anything wrong. There's a lot to keep track of. If we did miss anything, let us know in the comments, or just tell us what you're playing this month, or even better, tell us what you're dressing up as for Halloween.
Finally, I'm a beautiful butterfly! Mind big!
If you want to keep up to date with every game that has ever come out and ever will come out, we're doing our best to catalog that information over on IGN Playlist, which is a dedicated app for tracking your game library, wish list, pile of shame, or whatever else you want to keep track of. When I say we are cataloging that information, I mean mostly Logan Plant, who's one of the wonderful people who pulls this show together every single month. So go ahead to IGN.com/playlist or download the IGN Playlist app. Do it for Logan. He's very tired.
Really gotta get on my way.
No, don't do that. What you need is rest and treatment.
These videos would also not happen without the hard work of our producer Amanda Medina and editor Chris Del Padre, both of whom are very wonderful and very tired. So thank you all for watching. We'll see you next month. Let's get the hell out of here.
Now go on. You heard me? Go on! Go on, scram! Go! I hate you, go!